everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we're doing the 250 mile review update of the New Balance Nitrel V4. I've done a previous 100 mile review. If you haven't watched that on the vlog. I'll tag it now. So yeah, that was my initial 100 mile review, and today we're going to do the 250 mile update. So I've covered 250 miles in these now, these trail shoes, predominantly on trails, obviously grass, light trails, mud, some canal toe paths, some kind of gravelly paths as well. Predominantly off-road though. There has been a bit of pavement running to and from the trails, but yeah, so I'm basically going to give you a quick 250 mile update. Have my scores gone up or down from my 100 mile review? How do I like the shoes? What are the good things and the bad things about them? So let's get straight into the review. Okay, so like all my reviews, I like to start the most important thing. So Outsole is where I normally start my reviews. Like I said, this is an update. So on my 100 mile update, so on the 100 mile review, after my initial 100 miles running in it, I gave the Outsole a 7 out of 10. The grip's pretty good. The protrusions are perfect. Obviously the design of them is very good in terms of gripping different surfaces. I've used this in all different weathers: wet, kind of boggy underfoot. I've used this in dry conditions. I've used it in obviously wet grass, trails, roots, rocks. So yeah, it's perfect. Basically, it's brilliant on most surfaces. I've had very few issues with grip. I gave it a 7 out of 10 initially, and I'm probably going to bump that up to 8 out of 10 now. 250 miles in, and like I said, I've run it on pavements in wet weather, pavements in dry weather, just to get to a trail. I've run on trails in all different conditions. That's really boggy, really dry, and I've never ever had an issue with the Outsole. And even now, I know some of it's been used on soft trails, but some of it for the last, say, 4 months now in September, all through the summer when it's been really dry, and I've been kind of hammering the trails still. You've still got, I'll do some close-ups as I'm talking, you've literally still got the detail on the protrusion that's not even worn down. This rubber looks like it's going to be here for forever. So I gave it a 7 out of 10 initially. I'm going to bump that up to 8 out of 10 at the 250 mile review. The Outsole is unbelievable. Like I said, its grip's great. The design of it's great. There's no issues. I think I said initially on the wet weather, sometimes you get a clump of mud collecting in the 100 mile review there. But again, in the slightly dry conditions, I've had no issues with it. So I think I was probably being a bit harsh, and that'll kind of be the pattern throughout. That I probably was a bit harsh the initial review. So yeah, Outsole on the 250 mile review is going to be 8 out of 10. Okay, so Midsole now. Yeah, so again, this was probably what I thought would be the biggest drawback of the shoe in terms of it kind of died pretty quick. So at the 100 mile review, I'd even stated then there was some kind of major creasing going on in the midsole, and that's continued. It's not got much worse, it's just got a bit more pronounced. So I gave it initially a 6 out of 10. I was hesitant whether to change it or not. I have actually crept it up to a 6.5 out of 10 because it is obviously creased, but it's still got some kind of comfort there. It's a bit soft, and obviously with the creasing, I think it's kind of not softer, but there's less support there now. It's not as firm as it used to be, even though it's always been a softish foam. And it obviously is a Dynasoft foam. I had a minor issue during my marathon training block about 2 or 3 weeks ago when I'd kind of used these trail shoes for say 2 or 3 runs on the bounce, and it was on dry trails / canal toe paths, and I basically developed a bit of a foot issue under my arch, and I thought it might be possibly because of these shoes. Obviously the foams died a little bit, there's less support now, and I was using it on kind of hard pack surfaces. So, but even so, that was only potentially an issue. So yes, I've cut the midsole up to 6.5 out of 10. It's not the most durable. I had a concern about the durability of this midsole after 100 miles. 150 miles later, at 250 miles, it's not really got much worse. So I was probably going to be a tiny bit harsh. However, it's still not going to last hundreds and hundreds of miles. So I'll give it a 6.5 for the midsole at the 250 mile update. Okay, upper. So the upper's pretty thick. It's kind of a woven mesh. The tongue's pretty thick as well. It's not gusseted whatsoever. But again, there's quite a bit of protection as well, which I think is a good thing. Added support and protection in the toe box. So there's a toe protect. Again, I'll do some close-ups. And then the back heel counter is pretty solid. Again, I think I've touched upon this on the 100 mile review, that it's a very rigid very rigid heel counter. So overall, on the 100 mile review, I gave the upper a 7 out of 10. Again, I'm probably going to creep it up to 7.5. It's pretty thick and it can hold a bit of moisture, but again, it doesn't really affect you too much. And it's a fairly heavy trail shoe, not heavy trail shoe, it's a heavier shoe anyway, because it's heavier than a road running shoe. It got a bit smelly for a couple of weeks after I'd hammered it in the wet weather, but again, that's expected when I've been hammering it in sweat and it's water and it's sat on it, and it's a fairly thick kind of material that's just going to absorb the damp, and it's kind of gets a bit, but it's kind of cleared up now. So overall, there's zero signs of wear and tear. I battered it again, different conditions, submerged it, got it covered in mud, hot, cold, etc. There's no rips, no tears. The protection's been good. The toe protection has helped. If I've kicked a tree root or something or a stone. So yeah, so it was 7 out of 10. I'm going to creep it up to 7.5 out of 10. Okay, so outsole, midsole and upper have been done for this 250 mile update. So I always finish off with just a durability prediction / score and a value score. So durability on the 100 mile review, I gave it a 6 out of 10, purely on the back of this midsole issue that I believe the midsole would die pretty quick, and therefore the durability of the whole shoe would fade pretty quickly. So if the midsole goes, there's less basically chance to use it. Obviously, there's a risk to using it. If the midsole's died, you could pick up an injury, etc. With the midsole being crept up a little bit on the score, in terms of it has died a little bit, but it's still a pretty usable shoe, especially now as we're going into the winter months. Everything will get softer, the trails will get more soft and wet and mushy, so the midsole will be less of an issue. So yeah, so I'll creep up to the midsole score. I'm also going to creep up the durability score, so I'll give it a 6. I'm going to creep that up to 6.5 as well. It'll be probably because I based the initial issue on durability with the midsole, and now it being less of an issue, it's only fair to creep the score up. So 6.5 for the durability. It might obviously last. The outsole's not going to go anywhere. The upper seems to be going nowhere. So again, it's just purely based on the midsole. If that holds up quite well over the winter months and when everything gets a bit softer, then again the durability will last a bit longer than expected. But at the minute, I'm sticking with 6.5 out of 10 for the durability score. And last but not least, value. So again, these were RRP'd for 75. I picked them up for actually 45. Got them on a real big discount. I think I valued them, or I did the value score initially against the RRP price. However, as I've been going along with my other reviews, I've got some other shoe reviews. If you've not checked those out, watch those. I've generally based it on what I picked them up for. So I gave it a 6 out of 10 for value last time, because again, I thought the midsole died pretty quick, and if I'd paid 75, I would have been disappointed. Hence why I give it a 6. I got them for 45. Now, if you're going off value for 45 quid, these have been absolute bargain. So I'd probably give it like an 8 out of 10 for if they were a £45 trail shoe. But again, RRP, they were 75. I'm going to creep it up to, say, a 6.5 again from the 6. So it's going up a little bit. Because again, value-wise, they're lasting all right. The midsole has potentially faded a bit, but again, I'm maybe being a bit harsh compared to some of my other road shoes. The midsole is noticeably softer. It has got significantly more creasing than any of my other shoes, which is why I'm probably being a bit harsh. But again, I'd expect that to have lasted a bit longer on a trail shoe, maybe even been a bit firmer, therefore would have lasted a bit longer anyway naturally. So yeah, that score's gone up from 6 to 6.5 as well. So at the 100 mile review, there's a quick summary now. It scored 32 out of 50. At the 250 mile review, I'm scoring it 35 out of 50, so it's gone up three points in the next 150 miles, which is a good sign. It's getting more points as more I use it, which again maybe means I was being a bit harsh initially, but overall it's got 35 out of 50, which is 70%. Again, not the highest scoring shoe, but again it's a kind of cheap, solid trail shoe. It's my first ever trail shoe, specifically trail shoe I've ever owned. I've normally just used road shoes on and off the light trails. I'm glad I purchased it. I said it's got all the additional features it's got, so the toe protection, the slightly more solid heel counter, better grip, etc. That was all 100% worth getting a specifically designed trail shoe over trying to use a road shoe on a trail. So overall, still pretty happy with the purchase. Like I said, I'm going to hammer this through the winter. I don't know how much longer they'll last, but hopefully they'll get me through the winter into next year, into 2023. And then I'll probably review it from there. If they're still usable into 2023, I'll probably use them ad hoc, but they might well be being retired soon into the new year. But again, by that point, they might well have done 300, 400 even miles maybe potentially. So yeah, so that's the 250 mile update. If I've still got them and I get to say 400 miles or maybe 500 miles, then I'll probably do another update on them if I've still got them. If not, I'll do an update when I retire them, and why I'm retiring them and how far I got with them. As always, thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. Share these videos with anyone you know in the running community if you think they'll be beneficial. Like I said, most of my vlogs are running vlogs. I do the odd review as and when my shoes hit milestones like these have. I've got a marathon coming up in 2 weeks' time, so again, look out for that marathon vlog coming up. I'll do a full race day footage. But like I said, as always, thanks for watching. I will see you on the next one.